Thank you so much. It is a privilege to be here with you this morning. Yes, many, many years ago, I too was a student in those seats, and I remember thinking, what an honor it would be someday to be invited back to speak and to share on this stage. And actually, even before I graduated, I actually did have one opportunity to speak in a chapel similar to this one, not preview, but a regular student's chapel. And so in 2007, shortly before I graduated, I was invited, given the great honor to speak. And I actually was reminded of this recently, earlier this year. My parents were cleaning out some of their storage and their old boxes, and my mom gave me a box of things, and she said, "This is your stuff, you do whatever you want with it, but I'm throwing it away. So I don't want this stuff in my house anymore." And as I went through these papers and things, I came across a lot of old assignments and things from my time here in life. I found some yearbooks and looked at the dear friends that I had made and still keep in touch with. But one of the papers that I came across was my notes from the time that I spoke here. And I laughed to myself as I read kind of the outline that I had written and the careful message points that I had chosen. And this morning I laughed because the title of that message was "When God Says No." And I shared about what to do when we encounter disappointments and trials and difficulties in our life, and it seems like God is closing doors. Well, this morning, again, like I said, I chuckle a little bit to myself because if I were to title this morning's message, it would be "When God Says Yes." This morning, I want to invite you to reimagine, to correct any wrong perceptions that you have of God. And I promise you, and I invite myself into this message this morning. I am preaching to myself. I am talking to myself as I share this with you. I promise you that no matter how long you have been a Christian, whether you've been a Christian for 45 years, 4 minutes, or even if you're sitting here this morning and you're like, this Christianity thing, I'm not so sure I really want to be a part of it. That God person, yeah, I'm not so sure that I really want to know somebody who is the way that I've begun to perceive him to be, the one who allows things to happen in our world and around me and in my life that are happening to me. And so I want you to take a moment and to put all of that aside and to really come with a fresh and an open heart to who God really is. Because like I said, no matter how long you think you have known God, the infinite God who created the whole world, I promise you that there are things about him that you have imagined incorrectly. And so even this morning, I want to come with an open heart to receive a fresh perspective about a God who created the world and you and placed you. Acts chapter 17 is one of my favorite verses. And Paul talks about God choosing the time and the places that we would be so that we would reach out to him and find him. Not that he is far to be found. Our God is so close to us and working all around us. It is not an accident that you are here this morning. It is not a coincidence that we are encountering each other this morning. And that's kind of a big deal because my husband and I live on the other side of the world. We're not normally in Southern California at 10 o'clock on a Friday morning, but we are today. And it is our privilege to get to meet with you and to share with you about what God has done in our lives, and hopefully to bring to you a deeper understanding of who God truly is, how he is working all things that you might know him, how this God loves you and created you with a heart and passion and desires that he longs to fulfill. That Psalm chapter 37 verse 4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." You see, the important thing about knowing God accurately and removing those inaccuracies, those wrong perceptions that we have of him is so important, is that because God wants you to enjoy him. He wants to have this relationship with you that you actually want to be with him because he wants to be with you. I know at various points in my life, particularly as I've gone through difficult times, those are the times where I begin to blame God. In fact, part of when I was writing that message all those years ago about when God says no, I was working through some things in my own hearts about, God, it just seems like you say no a lot. It seems like you take a lot of good things away from me, and it seems like you're withholding things that I am really desiring. But as we go back to truth and who God really is and his heart for us, we see that not only does God desire to fulfill those desires, but he longs for you to enjoy and delight in him because he is a good father who gives good gifts and he gives dreams to us. And so I want to encourage you as we're re-evaluating how we see God, and the importance of that is because who we see God to be impacts who we see ourselves to be and how he's created us. See, because if God is this being that is not truly loving or very good, if it's a being that's distant and uninvolved in our life, the chances are we've ended up here by accident. It's very likely that the things that are going on in our life, if God doesn't care, then he's not aware of the things that are happening in your life. But the truth is, as we come to the Bible, we see that God is so aware that he is with you in trials and difficulties, and actually that he is even using, not causing those things, but using those things to work out for the good. This week, my husband and I, we've had a few surprise challenges along the way, and even as we are readjusting our plans and our expectations, we keep reminding each other, you know what? I bet this is going to happen. I bet we're going to recognize that there's something good that's going to come out of this. I bet there's a reason that this is happening so that something even better can present ourselves. See, as we believe the best about God, as we know the truth about who he is, a good and perfect and loving Father that doesn't give bad things to us, but only gives good things, that only stops us from hurting ourselves or stops us so that we can have something even better. As we see and know this for what it truly is, we're able to reflect upon how he created us, which is good and perfect and wonderful, despite our differences. It eliminates any desire to compare ourselves with anyone who's different from us. That was very difficult for me. Still is at times as I look at other people with their giftings and talents. This morning, getting up here on the stage, I'm bumping into several of my classmates that I graduated with, and I am definitely thinking, they should definitely be the ones up here. They are definitely more eloquent, more articulate. I'm sure they have much better illustrations and points that they could share with you. But as we eliminate comparison, we see that we're so different, but that's a good thing. And that's a God thing that he chose and intentioned, not because he likes them better and gave you that color hair or those gifting, those talents because he doesn't like you as much, but because he does and he desires to use those for his purposes and for good things. And so as you come to realize who God created you to be, it also allows you to recognize those things that he put within your heart. Those dreams, those passions, and those desires, those things that maybe you haven't really considered valid since you were a little kid. The Bible talks about being like a child, having childlike faith. And the reason this is so important, if you've spent any amount of time with a young child, you recognize the beauty and the value of that sincere and authentic trust that they can do anything, that they can be anything, they can accomplish anything. Children often change their plans several times as they grow up. And a lot of that is just the hope and the inspiration that the world is open for them, that they could be this, or they could be this, or they could be this. And this morning, I want to invite you that as you see God for who he truly is, who he's created you to be, I want to encourage you that he is saying yes to the dreams that he has placed in your heart. For me, those dreams went all the way back to when I was a child and to be a missionary. When I was 8 years old, I heard God speak to me about going to Africa, particularly to this country, Chad, that I had never been to. I had to have my mom help me find it on a map. And as we opened it up, I said, I'm going to go to Chad to be a missionary. And as I grew up, the Lord confirmed this call. God spoke to me through passions and desires that I began to recognize as from God. I love to travel. I love to try new things, to go to new places, to meet new people, to try new clothes and things. I'm sorry we didn't bring pictures. We should have brought pictures to show you all the unique, maybe even if you've recognized the picture that they put in the printout. It's my husband and I dressed up in the Cambodian traditional clothes. It's such an honor to learn a new culture and to appreciate it and to value it and to allow them to have them invite you into being a part of it as well. And so when I was, after I graduated from Life in 2007, I went to Chad, Africa. That dream was fulfilled in my heart. And it was my passion to work with children and to teach. And so one of the first things that I was a part of was with Youth with a Mission, or YWAM. We run discipleship training schools. It's Bible schools to teach people about the Bible. And there was one young woman in the class. Her name was Adele. And the first week, it was a little interesting because we gave some Bible assignments to her. And as she returned her homework, instead of, writing out the little essays that they were supposed to do, she returned a page full of pictures. And so, went back to her and I explained the assignment. And very ashamedly, she said, "You know what? I've only been to school till 3rd grade, and I don't know how to really read very well, and I can't write except a few words that I've memorized. I know how to write my name, I know how to write Jesus, but I can't write an essay." And as we said, that's okay, God that does not stop you from knowing God. And so for the next 3 months, we continued to work together, and she would watch other people as they would read the scriptures out in class. We would partner her up with other people that would help her read the books. But in the next 3 months, God did a miracle. And by the end of that course, she was able to read the Bible out. She even got up at church on Sunday and read a chapter in front of everybody. And it was a miracle because while we partnered her and she would follow along, nobody was teaching her. It was not, we didn't spend the next time going over phonetics and the alphabet or anything. It was simply from being in that environment and from God supernaturally enabling her to read and write. And so after that 3 months, Adele and we got to be really good friends. And Adele shared what her dream was. She said, I know that I haven't had much education. I know that I wasn't able to finish school. But you know what? I really would love to start a school for the children in my neighborhood. I would love to go back and have a school that particularly young women and young girls would be able to complete their education, unlike myself. And I said, you know what? Let's do that. I love teaching. I love children. And so over the next several years, we worked together. I taught her the things that I had learned about education, about childhood development. I got her books, and we started. At first, it was just a little community meeting. Anybody could come, the kids, doesn't matter the age. We just started together, and it started very, very informally. But she began a little school within her community. And just a couple months ago, I received a little newsletter from Adele that she is now running Emmanuel School in her neighborhood. From K to 12, she is educating girls and boys. She has fulfilled her dream. And I just want to encourage you one step even further. Shortly after I met Adele, her family took in a little girl from the neighborhood. The mother had died, and the father, he said, I need to go on to a different place so that I can find some work, so that I can even provide for myself. I'm unable to take care of this little girl. And this little girl, her name was Blessing. I'm trying to remember exactly, but I believe she was about 3 or 4 years old at the time. And so Adele's family took her in, they cared for her. And as Adele was about 20 at this time, Adele ended up being a lot like a mother to this little girl. And Adele's newsletter, the one that I just recently received, talked about how Blessing has completed her education and how now she is pursuing higher education, wanting to go to college to pursue either becoming a nurse or a teacher to serve her community as well. Saying yes to what God has is actually recognizing that God is saying yes to your dreams. It's stepping out in response to what He has put within our heart. So often we feel like, hearing God, or I'm not sure that I hear, or I don't know what I'm hearing. It's recognizing the voice, the heart that God has placed within you. That those dreams, those desires, they are from Him, they are for Him. And that God is actually saying yes to things that you are desiring to do. Another misconception about hearing God is we're afraid to hear Him because we are afraid that the big example that people usually use is, I'm worried that God's going to send me to Africa. Well, as somebody who went to Africa, I just want to say, you know what? He'll only send you if you really want to go. Because there's some of us out there who love to go. And so if you don't want to go, don't worry about that. God can find other people to go to Africa who want to go. But you know what? What is it that God has placed in your heart that you do really want to do? And I want to encourage you that those dreams that maybe over the years you've started to think it's dumb or impossible or just you're not good enough for it or you could never accomplish it, I want to encourage you that as you hear God say yes to it, that as you believe that He is able to make those things come true, I want to encourage you that there may be some little child in Africa whose dreams are waiting on your response to God's yes. Maybe in Africa or in Myanmar or in Cambodia, there's a child who is waiting for a sports program. You think you're just here playing soccer or playing sports just because it's something you like. But what if it was something that God's made you really good at and He's given you that passion for it so that you can take it to this other country and bring opportunities that children would never have? Maybe God has given you a passion for social media or coding or just this fascination with technology. Maybe you've often thought your enjoyment of video games was actually more of a distraction than everything else. But what if you heard God say yes? What if you heard God say that was something that He had placed within you and that all it took was you responding to Him? That you would then make something that would bring education to children who would never have access to it. This morning, I want to encourage you to hear God's yes to your dreams and to partner with Him in making the dreams of others come true as you say yes in partnership with Him. I'm going to invite my husband, and he's going to kind of bring some of the points of that little girl blessing and her name and what that means in this passion to pursue what God is speaking to each one of us.
Yeah. Man, if Naomi struggles with comparing herself to other LPU alum, trying to be married to Naomi, and then, and then trying to come up and speak. No, there is no one I respect, love, and admire more than my wife. And yeah, everything that she speaks is from her heart, and she has the years of ministry and service to back it up. And having seen firsthand how she serves and the schools in Myanmar, she didn't tell you that after 5 years in Chad, Africa, she went on to start schools for Rohingya refugees in Myanmar that were actually from Myanmar to Malaysia. In Malaysia, started a school. While her time there with the refugees, God put it on her heart to go back to Myanmar, and spent 5 years in Myanmar, starting schools in Myanmar. And then she was bringing Myanmar leaders across the border into Cambodia, where I have been serving off and on for the last 15 years, and that's where we met. And definitely the greatest gift after salvation that God has given me was my wife, Naomi. So, yeah. So I'm just gonna bring a little bit of some practical, maybe you didn't have a call to Africa at 8 years old, and you're wondering, well, what is it that I should pursue in my university track or in my future? What is it and that God would have for me? What is the yes that God has for me in my life? And I just want to bring a small little teaching about blessing today. We know that, God called Abraham as our father. And in Genesis chapter 12, this is God's promise to Abraham. And I feel like it's a promise to us, those of us who take that step of faith into obedience to what God's yes is for our lives. And this is what God promised Abraham. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. And so I just want us to, a little teaching on the 2 S's of bless. And as we see that Abraham was stepping out into this journey of faith, just like many of us, especially the guys who are here to think about and consider pursuing university training through Life Pacific University. And you may be wondering how it is that you should begin. And I would say that the first S in bless is a desire to serve. Now, where is it that I can be of greatest service? How can I serve others? Jesus said in Matthew that whoever wants to be the greatest must be the what? The servant of all. And if you ask me why I decided to go to Cambodia, when I was 18, I went to Cambodia with a YWAM mission trip, and I saw the greatest opportunity to serve that I had ever seen in my entire life. I saw an opportunity to be a blessing through service. Every great entrepreneurial endeavor, you guys, every great feat of ministry, it starts with seeing the needs of the people around you and a heart to serve them well. Martin Luther King put it this way: everyone can be great because anybody can serve. And I don't actually, thank you so much for including me in the LPU alumni fam. I'm honorary. I actually did not attend LPU. I suppose I married into it, and happily I will take that honorary title. I actually did not. All I had was a heart to serve at 18. And Martin Luther King says in that quote, you don't have to have an education to serve, right? You can be great. You can make a difference. You can have a lot of us in YWAM. I got my friend Jonathan here. He serves in Long Beach. He was just prayer walking in a high school this morning. They had a shooting yesterday. They were distributing food to families. It's not just you don't have to be brilliant. I went to Cambodia and I knew English and I knew Jesus. Okay? That's it. I didn't have a university education. I didn't have skills, but I had a heart to serve you guys. And I thought, man, I might not have a lot, but I could teach them English. And so I started an English school. And many of those English students today are leading churches, leading organizations, making a difference in their communities. Just because I had a heart to serve you guys. But the second S of bless that I want us to focus on today is a skill. And I just want to encourage us that mastering a skill will maximize your ability to serve more people more effectively. Naomi, with her degree from LPU, studying education and then getting a master's in leadership, her gift of educating people and of organizational leadership, I have seen it and been blessed by it. Our community, we lead a YWAM community in Cambodia. We have around 40 full-time people in community living with us. And we've provided food to over 2,500, a month supply of food to over 2,500 families this year. We have 45,000 students enrolled in our online education platform. And we're definitely making a difference. And the skills that Naomi brought to our organization were a massive increase in the blessing we were able to have, in the service, in the contribution that we were able to make in our community. And so the Bible puts it this way in Proverbs 22:9, says that, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will be stationed in the presence of kings. Proverbs 18:16 says, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before the great. Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers famously says that the 10,000 hour rule, have you guys ever heard of the 10,000 hour rule? Basically, his theory is that it takes around 10,000 hours to master something before you can really be proficient and efficient in a skill set that is going to add value to others' lives. And coming from a person who, just YWAM, heart to serve, that's YWAM. If anyone know Youth of the Mission, we have a lot. We will serve our guts out. We will go out there. Put us in anywhere. We'll serve. But as you're in our mission long, you begin to see as well the value of having a skill. And when you can add, you guys, a heart to serve is great. But when you can add to it the value of a skill, God moves on that, breathes on that, makes room for you, brings you before rulers, brings you into influence, not only in your society, your community, but to entire nations, you guys. And for me, I've had to kind of, read a lot and study a lot on YouTube and try my best to develop my skills on the field. And I'm so grateful Life Pacific University is partnering with YWAM bases all over the world now, amen? Looking to equip YWAMers with skills that we can be better. Jonathan's like, bro, I deal with a lot of broken people like every day. I think I would love to go to LPU and maybe learn some counseling, some ability to lead and more. I'm like, that's our heart. Thank you, LPU, for equipping ministers to serve effectively with skills that will be a blessing to the nations. That as the promise of Abraham, that God promised him that you will be a blessing to the nations. You, young people in Life Pacific University, are going to be a blessing to the nations with the skills and the heart to serve that you are going to receive, that God is going to impart to you through your time in Life Pacific University. I believe that. I've seen it in Naomi, that Life Pacific University is so much more than a community that wants to equip you with the skill, but it also wants to equip you with the heart to serve, with the heart to make a contribution and a difference in your world. So Naomi and I's prayer for you guys is just that God would put in your heart a desire to serve, that you would ask yourself and trust in the Lord enough to say, God, what is it that you would have for me in my future? What is the calling? Where is a place where I can serve? Where is a place, what is a skill that you've given me to develop? And that would equip you to be a blessing to the nations of the world. Thank you guys so much for having us here. Yeah.